Easy English, the solution for humanity.
قل إنني هداني ربي إلى صراط مستقيم دينا قيما ملة إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين.
Mihwish says, do we have to pay zakat on loans that we lent to someone? And is there any zakat on the debts that we owe people? So this question, if I understand it, is comprised of two different questions. The first one, the money that I've lent to others, do I have to pay zakat for it? The second question is, the money that I've borrowed from others, do I have to pay zakat for it? For the first question, the money that I've lent to others is one of two. Either the person who borrowed it is capable of returning it when I demand it from him, or he's totally broke, poor, or he is refusing to admit it. So one of the two. If I gave 10,000 euros to a friend who asked me for a loan, and when it is a year after, or when, for example, my nisab is above the threshold, and my hawl, my lunar year, begins on the 1st of Sha'ban. So when the 1st of Sha'ban comes, and the man did not return my 10,000 euros, I have to call him. And I say, listen, I need my money back. Do you have it? And he says, yes, of course. I'll give it to you immediately. In this case, I have to give zakat. If he did not return it or asked for an extension, or I was shy to ask him, I have to give zakat every single year. But if I call him every single year before the 1st of Sha'ban, and I say, listen, the 10,000 euros, and the guy says, wallahi, I don't have. I apologize, but I'll try to give it to you in the next 6 months, in the next year. Or he simply says, I'm not going to give it back to you. Do you have any proof? Sue me. What can you do? In these two cases, there is no zakat on it because the money is not in my possession. In the first case, in the first scenario, the money is in my possession as if it's in a bank, because all what I need is to request it back and I'll get it. In this case, I have to pay zakat. For the second scenario, there is no zakat even after 10 or 15 years until you get the money. Once you receive the money, just to be safe, just give 2.5% for the entire period, yani for 1 year only, because it was as if it was not there to begin with. The second question was about if I borrowed money. Most likely, when I borrow money, I do not possess it anymore. But let's assume that I borrowed 10,000 euros from a cousin, and I have the 10,000 euros in my bank account, and it stayed there for a whole year. If I did not give it back to him before the year was over, I am obliged to give 2.5% zakat on it. Because when the Prophet ﷺ dispatched his men to collect the zakat from all over the tribes, the zakat collectors would see a herd of sheep and tell them that you have to give 10 sheep as zakat, and would not inquire, would not ask, is all this yours or did you borrow some of it? Which means that they take zakat of whatever is present in your possession. And likewise, if I borrowed money, I have to give zakat as long as a full lunar year had passed, it reached a threshold, and I have it in my possession. Ibrahim says, my question is, while we are praying Taraweeh, some people leave their row and go outside Are we supposed to go a few steps to fill the gaps? Because after moving front to fill the row, again, you will see someone will go out and leave an empty space. Are we supposed to keep on moving forward or sideways to be filling the empty spaces? And can we move sideways as well as front, or only move front? The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, said, Man wasala saffan wasalahu Allah. Whoever connects a row, Allah will connect him. Meaning that it is highly recommended for you to fill up the gaps. If these gaps are in front of you. And what Ibrahim said is a bit hypothetical, because when people are praying Taraweeh, those who want to leave will leave. So you will not be moving forward, onwards to the first row. Maybe this is accepted in Al-Haram of Mecca or Medina, because it's so huge and vast, and people tend to leave gaps. And again, moving for the sake of filling up the gap is permissible, either front or sideways. There's no problem in that. However, it would be advisable that when you stand up for prayer, to be able to anticipate whether there are gaps in front of you, so you do not start your prayer and then walk, but rather walk and fill up the gaps until you are satisfied, and then you begin your prayer, inshallah. A brother says, if a person talks to a girl who is going to be his wife, but not yet have become a wife, does the fast remain valid if some fluid like madhi ejaculates while talking to her? First of all, it is sinful to communicate with your fiancé, because engagement is not binding. You can change your mind and break it up. She can change her mind and break it up. Marriage is the binding contract where both of you become mahram to one another, and you are a husband and wife. But when a man is engaged to a woman and he freely speaks with her, maybe goes out with her, a date, and then they break up, this woman would not be considered to be chaste, would not be considered to be righteous, because she had an affair with a man. And he is the same. He had an affair with a woman. One would say, yeah, but they were engaged. An engagement is a promise. It's nothing binding. It's not even legal. So he is sinful, she's sinful. They must repent to Allah Azza wa Jal. Is their fast affected by talking and discharging the prosthetic fluid? The answer is no. This only affects the wudu. If someone ejaculates semen, then this breaks your fasting if you're awake. So nocturnal emission, when you're asleep, this doesn't affect your fasting because you were not aware of it and it's not under your control. But such other actions such as masturbation and ejaculating semen due to any action that you have done voluntary, in this case, it breaks your fasting. Shahida says, the portion of the Quran I remembered have passed in the Taraweeh. Now it is just standing by and failed. Tries not to think about other things. Is it better not to go to the Taraweeh and remember Quran and other things that I'm mindful of? I think Shahida is talking about going to the Taraweeh in the masjid. And because she memorizes a portion of the Quran, she can relate to it when the Imam is reciting. But after that portion is over, and the Imam is reading new surahs, she finds herself wandering and not being able to concentrate on her salat. If this is what is happening to you, Shahida, then definitely praying in your home is better. Not because of this reason, but rather because the Prophet himself ﷺ told the women folk at his time that praying in their homes is far better and greater than praying in his masjid. So if you can hit two birds with one stone, if you can get the reward of praying in your home, in addition to a greater amount of concentration and submissiveness while reading on your own the Quran in your home, then definitely this is a win-win situation. Alvi says, is congregational dua before iftar bid'ah or permissible? Now, bid'ah is an innovation. And in order to understand whether this is an innovation or not, we have to go back in time and check the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, the books of hadith, to see whether the Prophet ﷺ has fasted Ramadan or not. The answer is yes. Whether he recommended that we make dua before iftar, when he said that the supplication of a person who's fasting is accepted. Did he say such a thing? The answer is yes. So we come to the third question. Did the Prophet ﷺ ever gathered his companions and made congregational dua for iftar? Because he told us to make dua and he fasted Ramadan. So was it ever reported? The answer is no. Hence, this becomes a bid'ah, because the Prophet did not do it ﷺ when the need for doing it was there. And this is one of the ways to recognize bid'ah with, and Allah knows best. Abdullah from Libya.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Shantullah wa barakatuh.
How are you?
I'm fine, Jazakallah khair for asking. What can I do for you?
Please, I want to know the ruling concept.
Excuse me? Well, Abdullah is gone, so I hope he calls again. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah we'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back. Shahida says, the portion of the Quran I remembered have passed in the Taraweeh. Now it is just standing by and failed. Tries not to think about other things. Is it better not to go to the Taraweeh and remember Quran and other things that I'm mindful of? I think Shahida is talking about going to the Taraweeh in the masjid. And because she memorizes a portion of the Quran, she can relate to it when the Imam is reciting. But after that portion is over and the Imam is reading new surahs, she finds herself wandering and not being able to concentrate on her salat. If this is what is happening to you, Shahida, then definitely praying in your home is better. Not because of this reason, but rather because the Prophet himself ﷺ told the women folk at his time that praying in their homes is far better and greater than praying in his masjid. So if you can hit two birds with one stone, if you can get the reward of praying in your home, in addition to a greater amount of concentration and submissiveness while reading on your own the Quran in your home, then definitely this is a win-win situation. Alvi says, is congregational dua before iftar bid'ah or permissible? Now, bid'ah is an innovation. And in order to understand whether this is an innovation or not, we have to go back in time and check the biography of the Prophet ﷺ, the books of hadith, to see whether the Prophet ﷺ has fasted Ramadan or not. The answer is yes. Whether he recommended that we make dua before iftar, when he said that the supplication of a person who's fasting is accepted. Did he say such a thing? The answer is yes. So we come to the third question. Did the Prophet ﷺ ever gathered his companions and made congregational dua for iftar? Because he told us to make dua and he fasted Ramadan. So was it ever reported? The answer is no. Hence, this becomes a bid'ah, because the Prophet did not do it ﷺ when the need for doing it was there. And this is one of the ways to recognize bid'ah with, and Allah knows best. Abdullah from Libya.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Shantullah wa barakatuh.
How are you?
I'm fine, Zakallah khair for asking. What can I do for you?
Please, I want to know the ruling concept.
Excuse me? Well, Abdullah is gone, so I hope he calls again. Khalid says, after suhoor, and suhoor is the pre-dawn meal, I slept and felt there is some dates left on my teeth. While sleeping, I felt the taste of dates and I swallowed my saliva. I feel there was no dates particles in my saliva when I swallowed, but however, when I felt the taste, I did not get up since I was lazy to get up in between my sleep. After I woke up and I rinsed my mouth, I found some small particles of dates. Does this break my fast? First of all, fasting is between you and Allah. I can give you an answer based on what I have read, which might not be the right answer, because you formulated the question in a way that you would get my answer. I'm not sinful for that. It's on you, because this is between you and Allah Azza wa Jal. So the rule is, if you're certain that you swallowed something, your fasting is invalid. If you're not certain, the fasting is valid. If you only found the taste without any particles, the taste does not affect your fasting. So now that you know the probabilities and the different scenarios, you are the only one who can judge. Because now you're saying that I was in between sleep, I was lazy. So if you did it unintentionally, you did not have your sound mind with you, then there is no accountability on you. But no one can answer this except you. It's between you and Allah Azza wa Jalla. And if you're doubtful, make up for that day. A sister says, I've failed as a mother. I tried to raise my children to be religious. I had hope that reached the sky, but they are not showing interest in applying the correct Islam. They waste their time with silly things, do not want to pray at a masjid, and this drives me crazy. I keep shouting because they don't listen. I feel I hate them. So as a mother, how can we let them love the deen? They are teenagers. First of all, this requires a lecture. You have to weigh the consequences of your actions. Being crazy doesn't fix things. Shouting at them does not fix things. Forcing them, it depends. There are red lines we cannot cross. If their father is a righteous practicing Muslim, he must take them with him by force to the masjid to pray. Because this is an obligation. This is not human rights. This is not child abuse, all this crap. All this is nonsense for Muslims. We have a religion to follow. Who gives whatever about their laws and regulations? So the father is obliged to accompany him. These are red lines. Now, if they don't want to memorize the Quran, it's not mandatory. Don't focus on something that they don't want so that you don't lose the whole package deal. If they spend their times in trivial things and waste their times on silly things, it's silly to you. To them, it might be a breather. So if they are doing halal things, playing halal video games every now and then, give them some time. Give them incentives. Change your strategy, your tactics. If you always tell them directly, do this, and they don't do it, try to change. Try to give them incentives. Try to tell them, if you do this, I will do that for you. If you manage to pray a whole week, 5 times a day in the masjid, I'll increase your quota of video games into half an hour, for example, a day, etc. You have to work it out, but you cannot simply raise the white flag and give up. Jabidur says, I prayed the sunnah before Fajr at home. Then I went to the mosque and accidentally made the intention to pray the sunnah for Fajr instead of Fard and joined the Imam. What to do? No, there's nothing wrong in that. See, the intention is a condition for Salah. But so many times we make wudu, we go to the masjid to pray because we heard the adhan, and when we say Allahu Akbar, we get these whispers, this is Dhuhr or Asr? Wow, I don't know. And it takes a couple of seconds for you to recollect. Ibn Taymiyyah says there's no problem in that because your intention in prayer was to pray the prayer of the time. So when you went to the masjid and you joined the Imam, your intention was to pray the congregation, which is Fajr, so it is valid, inshallah. Uza says, in my local masjid for about 30 minutes before the Sheikh comes into the masjid to do tafsir, someone will be reciting the Quran loudly and people will be listening. Can I also recite the Quran silently, or is it a must for me to listen to his recitation? No, you can read your own Quran without any problem, inshallah. Samir finally says, what to do in this case where a person has gastritis and doctor told him not to fast? I don't see the connection. I don't know the disease, but I think gastritis is the one who passes wind so often. This has nothing to do with fasting. This has to do with wudu. But if a trustworthy doctor comes and says that you have an illness in your stomach, that you must not fast, and he's a Muslim, he's trustworthy, you have to obey him and not fast. If he says this is chronic and will be with you forever, you have to feed one poor Muslim.
إنني هداني ربي إلى صراط مستقيم دينا قيما ملة إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين